Hi everybody, I'm Costa and welcome to another video where we're going to be looking into Viola's wisdom flowing through after a brilliant question that one of the participants in the call had about the creation process and about discovery and the difference between specific focus and general focus, but also really what a discovery is. So when we formulate desire, when we get the clarity about our question, what is left for us to do in order to see what we want physically manifest? Sometimes we feel like we need to do a lot of action, and sometimes we can go on the completely other side that we don't do no action, and Viola gives this amazing insight, and I'll just let you discover it in the minutes to come, and then I'm excited to see what you guys think. Just you can respond down below in comments, or you can just share it with a friend also that has interest in getting to listen to material like this. Anyways, enjoy it. See you later.
I listened to a recent conversation that it was related to manifestation or manifesting, and there was about the letting go. You release the asking, release the question, and then move to discovery. And so,
well, there is a part between the releasing the question. In other words, when you have the clarity of the question, you make the preference. In other words, your clarity of your wanting is there. Your desire is clear. But that clarity of desire, clarity of the wanting is to be released. And that's how you tip the point into discovery. Whereas if you are still looking at the desire, you cannot experience its fulfillment. If you're still looking into what you're wanting, you still cannot experience it in your physicality.
Yeah, can you say more about what that discovery perspective is? I can see with the preference or the clarity of.
So as long as you're clear that you're releasing not the question, because question is there until you make the preference. So your question turns into desire, your question turns into the preference, your question turns into the wanting. But at that moment, are you ready to see it? Means, are you ready to release your idea, your received idea, clarity of desire, wanting? Are you ready to experience it? Those are two different parts. So when you release the wanting, well, now you're on a lookout, now you're discovering, and it's not that nothing else exists until you see that desire show up to you. But then you're in a discovery. In other words, you're not holding on to that wanting. You're not holding on to desire. So you're prone to find in your discovery, while being curious and wondrous, birthing of some new questions along the way, and being able in your discovery to see even the steps along the way through the synchronicities or just simple awareness that you're including more and more towards that desire until you really include it and then experience it. And so that discovery, when you deliberately release the clarity of the wanting, it may happen the very next moment. These are your instant manifestations. You got such clarity about what you want and then release that clarity, looked elsewhere, and it was there. In other words, let's say that you were really looking to find something, to buy something, but the store is across the street. Well, if you're looking on your phone and you do not look elsewhere, in other words, if you're really digging in the clarity of that wanting to find, and eventually you drop it, and then you look around and there it was, the place for you to get it from to begin. Well, that's your discovery. It can happen rather quickly. But for the bigger desires, usually the ones that you've been thinking along the way, and you still have the awareness of that which is the gap, that is the time where you usually ask some other questions along the way. And those are those gift boxes that you keep unveiling. In other words, not only in formulating of the new questions, but also you see the realization of some other desires along the way. So let's say you had a bigger preference, a bigger desire, but you release the clarity of that wanting, And because you released it in your discovery, you start seeing manifestation of some other desires, which means you're in a vicinity of inclusion, which means you can then experience it rather quickly.
And there's something in there that where Jill started and she was asking specific. She said about specific and being specific. And the way you described it there would almost serve more to be less specific when it comes to that, or to even think less specifically, especially in that discovery phase. Is that?
Well, discovery phase is you giving attention outwards. In other words, let's say that you wanted to have a coffee, and at that moment there is no coffee in your place. And then you know you need to go to the coffee shop. So you get the clarity of wanting, of what you want, you release it, and here comes the discovery of the action of putting the shoes on, getting the wallet, and going to get the coffee. In other words, this is how you include it. In 99.999999999%, even following the steadiness, always following the steadiness and that which is receiving of the answers, you need to perform some kind of an action to include something in your physical experience. In other words, purchasing the car, swiping the credit card. In other words, purchasing the experience, or even though somebody bought you an experience, you're still using your physical body to go and get to experience that experience. In other words, we're getting really into nitty-gritty details here, but we want you to know that this discovery is you looking around, whether you're offering physical action or you're looking around also by observing in your thought too. So this discovery is not you sitting in an unfocused perspective, dispersing your focus, and all of the physical things are magnetically coming to you, physically being glued to your physical body. It is that in that perspective of dispersing, you pull into the wider perspective, so then you can be on a lookout what is the most satisfying path of a physical discovery of that which is your physical manifestation of that desire.
Okay, wow, I love that. That was a great...
Well, we really emphasize that, and we have not said it before, just to really, you can see that all these things that are following through of the physicality of you, we understand that to get to the perspective of steady, often you are referred to release the action, and we say do not do it by the time you get to the perspective of steady. But when you're in the steady and looking for it, also in holding on to that steady, you sometimes debilitate yourself by not taking any action. And we say, how do you get to include those physical manifestations if you're physically not including them into your experience too? And therefore, it is really just about the whole flow and the whole dance. For as you will know exactly what is the action that follows the process of unfocusing. When you lock in that last layer of the clarity of the question, then the desire is full. Then the clarity of the wanting is released rather quickly, and therefore you're seeing the discovery of that. Then from that perspective, you're releasing it from that dispersed perspective, and you follow your instincts to include it by your physical action. There is nothing wrong with the physical action. Only when you're identified with your thought is that is the trouble. But when it comes from the wider perspective, you being easy, you really are enjoying that ride from knowing who you are, and then opening the door and really taking that ride in a one fell swoop from your physical steps into experiencing your desire in your physicality.
Wow, that was so clear. Loved it. Thank you.
Since you've asked for it, it's been there. Really excellent conversation. Go ahead.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be preparing more for the next weeks to come. As you can notice, if you've been following week after week, we're getting back into the more consistency of putting our content out there, and we appreciate all your support. We love you, and we'll see you soon. Bye.